Well, good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows on this Wednesday now. And glad to have you. Thank you for joining us. I thought that we had an interesting show yesterday, a little bit different. I'd like to get your feedback. What did you think of it? Did you like that? Would you like us to see, or would you like to see us do some more video responses, looking at whether it's sermons or conferences, whatever the case may be, responding to some of the evangelical ridiculousness that's going on in the world today. But I'm always looking forward to hearing what your thoughts and opinions are. And let's see here. Let's hop on over to YouTube and Worshipify so I can say hi to all of you and welcome you to today's show on Worshipify. Thank you all for joining us, and it's great to have you as you are fighting the power by not getting on the YouTube website. Those of you on YouTube, I understand. Eventually, though, I'm telling you, just you wait. Worshipify is going to be where it's at. And great to have Susan on. Good morning, Davey. Great to have you on from Northern Ireland. Davey, I did not know that you were from Ireland. Good afternoon. Okay, so Ireland's not too terribly off if it's afternoon over there. And let's see here. Davey, you do have a question for me today. Why was Peter preaching the death, burial, and resurrection in Acts 2? Okay, yeah, I can take that question. I also have another question today that I'm going to answer as well. Kristen, great to have you on this morning. Myra from Green Bay, so happy to have you. Let's see here. Nancy, good morning. Jay, good morning. Ken, you're back in Dallas now, back home. I bet it's good to be home for a little while at least. And Jay gives a response to Davey. Acts 2:30 gives the why. Very possible. I'll look at that here in just a minute. I mean, I've read Acts 2 many times. I just don't have it memorized off the top of my head. Let's talk about a few things, though. Things that happen in the world today. And, have you heard about all the crazy stuff going on with airlines, Boeing, planes falling apart, and also the DEI trying to hire pilots and whatnot based upon merit, but by the color of their skin or the gender that they may have, or I don't know, whatever they call themselves. Well, a whistleblower and this comes from the Daily Wire, whistleblower on the Boeing aircraft safety issues. His name was John Barnett, and he brought this to the surface, to the public, and he filed this lawsuit against Boeing. And the lawsuit basically says that the company retaliated against Barnett for raising his safety concerns with the U.S. Labor Department in 2017. So this has been going on for a little while. And long story short, the man is dead. He was found 62 years old in a vehicle at a Holiday Inn, and he was found dead with a gunshot wound to the head. Now, I don't know what that means, but certainly leaves some questions out there. It is always amazing to me how in modern times it really does seem like if you are somebody that's at the forefront of any kind of controversy, big uncovering, whistleblowing, or even a cover-up, it's amazing how you can find yourself, I don't know, there's a certain word. Last guy's name, first name starts with a J, ends in an E, mysteriously died in a prison. You get what I'm saying here? I don't know. Maybe this man got to a terrible place in his life and he thought the answer was ending his own life. But doesn't it just seem a little bit suspicious? Isn't it just a little bit weird? And I say all that, we have so many strange things that happen. And so many weird things happen that you forget what happens. I mean, we forgot that we had a spy balloon go overhead. We had, you remember McAfee? The guy who created the software that scans your computers for viruses? He mysteriously was found dead, and he very much was like, I'm not going to kill myself, I'm not suicidal, and then he mysteriously committed suicide. And I guess I say all that to point out they want to treat you crazy, like you're an insane person for pointing out weird things. It's like if you say, hey, weird things are weird, then you are some kind of crazy conspiracy theorist. And you're not allowed to point out, hey, why is it that we have some very strange things going on? And I don't know. We don't know the whole story. I go back to 2017 Mandalay Bay and the terrible shooting in Las Vegas. What is happening? What is going on? Why can't we have answers? These things get swept under the rug. We don't ever hear about it again. There's nothing to see here. Move along, move along. And they keep so many things in your face all the time that it's easy to get overwhelmed and forget about all of the ridiculous, insane things that happened. And once again, if you dare point out, why does this seem so suspicious? Oh, there's nothing suspicious about it at all. The man just committed suicide. Fill in the blank, whatever the case may be. And Nancy said nothing is ever done when these people allegedly commit suicide. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. So I'm saying all that to get a point across. In today's modern time, they want to treat you like you're an insane person. Everything is a crazy government conspiracy. I started to get specific, but I was worried I may get so specific that YouTube may not appreciate it. So I'm not saying that everything is a... I'm not saying that everything is a crazy government conspiracy or anything, but it does certainly make you wonder. And I apologize, I was getting a flashing light here, making sure that it was working. And I think we're okay. Okay, it's buffering there with you, Nancy. Ah, okay. Okay, we seem to have settled out now. Okay, I think we're good now. So with all of that, don't let them bully you or gaslight you to thinking that you are an irrational person if you find weird stories to be suspicious. It's amazing how they expect us to, they just report the story and then you're just supposed to take it and not even ask any questions. Here's the statement: the whistleblower from Boeing found dead, hotel room parking lot. Sounds like the beginning of a crime show or some kind of mystery movie, whatever the case. And if you dare say, well, that's weird. Oh, how dare you say that's weird? Do you think there's some kind of crazy conspiracy going on, you crazy nut job? Whenever it's suspicious how some of the dealings went on during the 2020 election, hey, there's a lot of inconsistencies here. I don't have any evidence that proves that the election was necessarily stolen. Now, I don't know, maybe there is something out there, but I don't have any evidence, but I'm just saying it's weird. Why was all this weird? Oh, you're crazy, you crazy, paranoid conspiracy theorist. Why are you worried about this idea of the election being stolen? So don't let them make you think you're crazy. You're not. Okay, you're not. And I know that they always say the crazy people don't think they're crazy, but I think it's getting to the point now where we have to be crazy to just trust them and take them at their word. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Very weird things going on there. Maybe keep your eye on that. Maybe not keep your eye on that. Maybe it's all a distraction. They want us to look at something else. I was talking to a number of people, and they were all convinced that the spy balloon was a big distraction. There was something else going on. I think it did help take some attention off of a certain president who was not doing very well and still isn't doing very well and may lose to the previous party's president nominee and was president. All right, now, there's that story. Nothing to see here. Sweep it under the rug. Crazy Boeing whistleblower found dead. Nothing to see here. Move along, move along. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain kind of thing. Now, let's talk about the other touchy subject. I'm going to talk about another really touchy subject today, and I cannot believe I'm going to do this, especially after yesterday. I am going to defend, at least a little bit, I'm going to defend John MacArthur. Okay, hold on. Don't change the channel. Hear me out. John MacArthur, the other day, made a decent point. And his point was not about really Calvinism or theology. Well, a little bit. But his point was regarding Martin Luther King Jr. And we have so often in history looked back on many of these people, these prominent figures, whatever the case may be, and we viewed them with kind of some rose-tinted glasses. And Martin Luther King Jr. has received some of that treatment. And how many of us have been taught growing up? Oh yes, he was a pastor. He was a preacher. That's what he was. He was a Christian pastor. Well, John MacArthur, he brought some facts to the surface. And if you actually look at the theology that Martin Luther King Jr. preached, it wasn't Orthodox Christianity. He may have preached from the Bible, he may have referenced God, he referenced Christ, but it was not anything that we would consider remotely sound biblical doctrine. And I'm not even talking about the specifics of understanding dispensationalism or rightly dividing the Bible, separating mystery and prophecy. I'm not even getting that level. I'm talking about some very basic things. For example, Martin Luther King Jr. held very much a mystical view concerning the person of Christ. He held the view that Christ was not so much actually divine ontologically, but he was more so just in his relationship to God, his obedience to God. Very much, like I said, a mystical kind of pseudo-theology type position, approach to the Bible. And he several times mentioned that he didn't hold to the virgin birth. And John MacArthur made that point. Now, John MacArthur also kind of messed up in a few areas where he mentioned the life that Martin Luther King lived. He absolutely had kind of a questionable history, questionable life as far as, his marriage and some things like that. I'm not going to stand here and just talk about all the failings of a man who has passed. But I'm just addressing some of the reality, the answers here. So there's the theology side, which MacArthur was right to address, which Martin Luther King absolutely had a very, like I said, almost Gnostic type view, in a sense, if you will, rejecting the actual virgin birth deity of Christ and holding to more of Christ as an ideology as opposed to actually being the Son of God in the flesh. Furthermore, he did have some questionable conduct as just a person in his daily living. But that's where John MacArthur kind of goes off on his evangelical, he wasn't a real Christian not only because he denied the virgin birth, but also because he sinned. Well, John MacArthur, easy now. Don't start throwing in all your legalism that Calvinism brings in. I'm not going to be so quick to say that. But he is right on the first count. Now, Christianity today, who absolutely cannot help themselves, they had to go to bat and defend Martin Luther King. Christianity today, the more that I read them, the more I watch them, the more I realize they are completely owned by woke liberal ideology. So they do not represent anything I would consider Christian. And it's a shame because wasn't Christianity today once founded upon by Billy Graham, which I understand Billy Graham's he wasn't a perfect theologian by any means, and we could argue there was even potentially some confusion done. But certainly Billy Graham was not a crazy leftist. And Christianity today, crazy leftists. So they've gone off that wagon really, really fast. Trent, I noticed your comment here. You said scientists aren't called crazy for their theories, but we are. Oh yeah, scientists will have the most ridiculous of theories. And that's perfectly fine because they're the scientists and they can do whatever they want. And then Nancy said a false teacher. Yeah, if you deny the deity of Christ, you are absolutely a false teacher. So Christianity Today had to defend Martin Luther King, and the title of their so let's so you can see right here the title of this article is "Why John MacArthur is Wrong About Martin Luther King," and then if you read the bottom part, this is pretty good. The prominent pastor's claim that Martin Luther King Jr. was not a Christian is not only ahistorical, it misses God's heart for justice. God's heart for justice. I love all the little evangelical phrases that they use. God's heart for justice. Why can't we just quote Scripture? That's because modern evangelicals, they know like one or two verses. They know John 3:16 and they know Romans 3:23, and that's it. That's all the depth that they have. They have no other. They may be able to quote the Great Commission. So they have to just make up phrases. God, yes, does carry out justice. His heart for justice. Why do we have to speak so, I don't know, what's the word to use? We want to make everything so poetic or sing-songy, whatever. It's just, but their claim, though, Martin Luther King, not a Christian. So Christianity Today, if you have somebody who questions the actual deity of Christ, virgin birth, spiritualizes so much of it instead of taking it and standing on it, if that's the case, so you really are defending that somebody can deny the virgin birth and be a Christian. And like I said, maybe I'm wrong here, but my sources are pretty clear on what the context was. So then you get to this matter of it misses God's heart for justice. So they're tying in, honestly, there's a particular word that I want to use for this, but it's the idea of social justice. It's trying to get brownie points with those who hold to a woke ideology. It's trying to get virtue. It's virtue signaling is what it is, the hope for justice. So they're equating seeking social justice with Christianity, and that's exactly what Christianity Today has turned into, is it's turned into this ideology of you need to pander to social left-wing ideology because that's what true Christianity is. And so they go on through the article, and I'm not paying for the whole. Our idea is, I think it actually came about whenever the Gospel Coalition made their own post honoring Martin Luther King, and the Gospel Coalition is absolutely a joke as well. And so it really is a shame that we are dealing with this kind of ideology coming from supposedly Christian-based, Christian-grounded type institutions, supposedly. And we have to be honest. And this is where we have to separate the man from the accomplishments. And I think this is an important historical principle. The reality is that there have been men who have accomplished some really great things. Yet, if you look at their conduct in other areas of their life, they've left a lot to be desired. I think an example of this would be, for example, maybe George Washington, some of the early presidents holding slaves, right? So they did great things. They founded the greatest nation the world's ever known, yet at the same time they have that moral black spot on their record. Then there was no pun intended there. Now you also have, we can go to biblical examples. Think about King David. King David, great king, greatest king ever known. We could also point out his issues with Uriah and Bathsheba. That was a big problem. But here's another thing that we often forget about David is his kids didn't turn out very good. Solomon, I guess, was maybe his best one. I don't know. We don't really know a whole lot about how the rest of his kids turned out in their later years in life, but most of his kids did not turn out to be very obedient, very God-fearing, good, obedient Israelites in that context. So what do? Do we throw David out and say that David had nothing to contribute, that he should be forgotten about? No, we don't do that. We just realize that great men have shortcomings. And whenever it comes to matters of fighting for civil rights, Martin Luther King had a role to play there. And so I think we can acknowledge the role that he had to play, but at the same time, we're not going to sit there and say, oh, he was a great in every way possible. He was a perfect, upright Christian man. He was a perfect, upright husband in everything he did. I think that's a little bit ignorant and ignores the reality on the ground, the true situation at hand. And I think that needs to be understood. And what's so frustrating to me is Christianity today, they will defend Martin Luther King to the grave as not only somebody who did some good things as far as civil rights, but also was just the absolute perfect example of what a Christian was, the perfect example of a husband, whatever the case may be. They'll defend him, and then what will they do with Trump? Christianity today will spit all over Trump. They hate Trump. Why? Well, they don't care about what he has done. They care about his personal life. So, record, forget it. His efforts in improving American society, irrelevant. Orange man bad. And so they have this ridiculous double standard. If Martin Luther King Jr. gets off the hook for some of the things that he did, which I'm not saying he gets off the hook, I'm just saying, listen, let's focus on the context here. He was a flawed man who did some good things. I think that we can say that's true for a lot of people. There's a lot of flawed men. Ronald Reagan, a lot of conservatives love to talk about how great Ronald Reagan was. Ronald Reagan wasn't a perfect man. He certainly had some flaws. So we need to realize there's a disconnection to a degree from what the man accomplished versus what the man did in his private life. If we held to that, we need to stop honoring or at least giving credence to athletes, because many athletes are not good people off of the field. Joe Montana was not exactly an upright, good man off the field, yet he's remembered as a great quarterback because of what he did on the field. Whereas Roger Staubach, he was great on both the field and off the field, even though he was a Catholic, but I digress there. So I will say this, and this may be a little bit uncomfortable. We need to start paying attention to what people teach as far as doctrine and take what's good from their doctrine, but just don't marry it to their actions. We've had people in the past, you can fill in the blank. Martin Luther reformed some. He wasn't anything. I would not let Martin Luther teach a Sunday school class unless he was maybe giving like some kind of lesson on languages. That may be the only thing he could do. So Martin Luther definitely did some things that he should not have done. Other writings that he has, you could read and you think, oh, that doesn't sound very good. Yet we haven't buried the man. We haven't torn down his statues yet, I don't think. So this is where it matters. You have to look at the man and what he accomplished and the things he did separately. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to have a statue for anybody. And I'm not saying that we need statues for people, but anybody that we hold to at least some degree of history. And you've got to have history. You've got to have something that grounds everybody in a common culture, common ideal. So this is kind of a stance probably that will please nobody, because I'm not up here saying that Martin Luther King Jr. is a Christian. I don't see how you could hold the views he has to be an actual Christian, Orthodox Christian, believing that the perfect Son of God in the flesh was the sacrifice for sins and rose again. He even questioned the resurrection. It wasn't like he firmly taught a resurrection either. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he is somehow this upstanding Christian, because I don't think he was. I'm not going to say that he was somehow an upstanding, obedient Christian man in his private life. I'm not saying he was that either. So I can say all that, which makes a bunch of people mad about Martin Luther King that really think that he was a saint on earth. And at the same time, I'm not going to say that because of the things he did in his private life, we need to erase him from the history books, even though a lot of people on the left wants to erase him from history books, because even Martin Luther is not as left-wing enough for them. So this is an important principle that we have to consider. We got to take everything in context, consider everything. Otherwise, nobody will be qualified, nobody will be accepted to have any kind of memory notebook in a history book. We will live in 1984 whenever we erase history continually. Jay, oh, that's funny. God determined Martin Luther King would have those views, so MacArthur should accept it for God's glory. Yes, all to the glory of God. Glory, glory, glory. Yesterday, whenever John Piper was talking about everything on earth, God wants us to be rejoicing and have joy in His glory. And so wait, you mean the glory whenever He sends, a child to hell because that child wasn't one of the elect? And then, Piper may say, well, God doesn't send children to hell, so you're saying children are elect? And then they become not elect whenever they get to an age of accountability. Oh man, Calvinism. You can have so much fun poking fun at it because it's so silly. So silly. Okay. Now, I had a question yesterday, and it was sent to me by email, and I'm going to answer it on here. And the question was, and let me actually pull up the question itself so I can read it in its full, proper context. Okay. The question is, I was going to ask you if you have a recommendation for a good daily devotional book or study guide. I've been meaning to get one, but I would like to get a good one that's actually at least mostly correct. LOL. All right, so this is a good question. I like it because of what you add at the end, and that's so important. You add at the end, you would like to get a good one that's at least mostly correct. So, first of all, I don't want to out the person. You can out yourself. I think they may be in the comments section today. And if so, that's the case. I should have clarified if you want me to use your name. But they asked me, about a devotional or study guide. And you know that there's a lot of bad theology out there. That's what's so encouraging to me. You understand that not every single commentary, devotional, study guide, fill in the blank, has good doctrine, good theology. So you want to actually get a good one. So I am so impressed. I'm so happy that you understand the importance of getting good material for studying the Bible. And that just shows that this ministry, other ministries, what we're doing is working because we're getting people to help them understand that so much of Christian teaching nowadays is deeply flawed in many ways in its doctrine. It's very confused. It has a lot of errors in it. And so you don't want to make that mistake. And so I cannot just encourage you enough. Great job. Way to discern. Good job paying attention. Now, here is the challenge. And I saw what Jay said. Jay said, good luck with that, LOL. Okay, Kristen said it's fine. Okay, Kristen was the one that asked me. So Kristen, and I'm bragging on you, so I want to give you all the credit. So Kristen is a good Bible student. Kristen is sharp, and she knows that she's got to be very careful about what material she uses. Kristen, I'm going to say right now, I'm not impressed with many devotionals, and it's mostly because they don't teach the Bible in a rightly divided position. They don't discern between what was for Israel, what was for the body of Christ. So I don't want you to be confused by reading a devotional that doesn't line up. A lot of times devotionals may take instances from the Old Testament stories and try to make application for us today. And even though I'm not saying that you can't get inspired, I think Benaiah fighting a lion in a pit in the snow, that gets me fired up. That's amazing. But what does that really have to do other than it gets me fired up and maybe I'm motivated to go do something, go work out, or I don't know, just not be a weak little man. I don't know. But when it comes to Old Testament stories, the devotionals are going to be pretty bad about trying to take them and make them about us today, and I don't encourage that. So they'll get a lot confused in that aspect. So what do you do? And you didn't just say devotional, you also said a study guide. The best study guide is a King James Bible. You have one. I'm pretty sure you do. I think your mom was telling me you got one. So you have your King James Bible. The Companion Bible is an amazing Bible to use. E.W. Bullinger wrote that. It's my go-to study Bible. But you're smart enough to use it. I'm not saying you're not smart enough. It's just overwhelming if you're not used to the format. And it's probably, the Companion Bible may not be what I recommend right off the bat for somebody, because you want to get good, you want to get grounded first, and you can get so into the minutia and the little intricate details of the Bible in the Companion Bible that you may never make a whole lot of headway because you're stuck in all that. Now, I'm not saying to never get a Companion Bible. I think a Companion Bible is an amazing tool. It's just one of those things that I wouldn't. Here you go. Here's an illustration. My dirt bike. Okay, right. Leave it to me to bring up dirt bikes somehow. My dirt bike is a Honda 250 RX. It is a very touchy bike when it comes to the throttle. It stalls very easy. I would not recommend that bike to somebody right off the bat. It's a great bike, absolutely, but you got to build up some fundamental skills in order to be able to use it very well. So that's where I'd recommend more like a trail style bike. Well, the King James would maybe be like, here's your trail bike, that way you can get trained on it. And then you can get a Companion Bible, and the Companion Bible it'll have enough material to keep you busy for your lifetime, your kids' lifetimes, your kids, your grandkids, great-grandkids. There's so much there. So let me do this. Let me go to show you this website right here. The thing about devotionals that are nice, okay, and my audience, hold on. The things about devotionals that are convenient is it does have a sense that it makes Bible study a little bit easier to do. You're not so much left to your own devices to try to figure out what you're going to study, what you're going to read, and that can be tough. I mean, I'm a pastor. It's not always easy to figure out, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to study? Where am I going to go? I got to figure this out. And for those of you who have a full-time job, all these responsibilities, it's nice to have an idea that I have a book I can go to that will really basically get me, I'll hit the ground running as far as what I can study. So that's nice. The challenges, I would say, you will be better served in the long run, even though it is tempting to try to get a study guide or a devotional. You will be better off in the long run just studying the Bible itself. That way you don't get a whole lot of men's input into it. Now, I would say that there are a few things for you. So let me find something for you. I'm on a good friend's website here. And I want to show you a few books that I would recommend that you can get and that will help you in your studying of the Bible. Let's see. So here's a few things that I would recommend, okay? Here's a few books, some small books that can kind of get you on the right track. So this is Dispensational Publishing. My good friend and mentor, Dr. White, he has some little booklets, and these are small little booklets. So one of these that are really good that would this is not so much a Bible study, but it gives you some good Bible principles. Why I'm a fundamentalist, and you should be too. I mean, it's $3.50. Okay, that's nothing. And it's a great little book. It will give you such a good foundation to get started on studying the Bible. So there's that one, Why I'm a Fundamentalist and You Should Be Too. Then, let's see here, Why I'm a Pre-Tribulational Premillennialist. This is another really good basic book. It gives you just some good outline of theology concerning the end times, $2.49. Very simple, very easy to read. He does a great job with showing you some charts and graphs and things. So, very, very good. There's one particular I was looking for that he has. I mean, all of these would be fun to read. Let me see. Let me do. I'll let you watch me do some searching really quickly. So, doing a word search. Okay, here's one. Here's another good one for you. Dispensationalism for Dummies. I mean, goodness, it's $1.25. So cheap. So just a basic 3 simple principles for biblical interpretation. This is going to be an excellent book for you to get as well. I mean, all of these, I don't even know how big this book is. They're all very, very easy to read. Doesn't take very long at all. And that will be an excellent reading source as well. So those would probably be 3 that I'd recommend for you to get in addition to your King James Bible. And it will help you figure out how you want to approach studying and going from there. So those will give you some good just baseline principles for you. Now, let's say that you do want to do more Bible study type stuff. And I don't know, if you're looking for a devotional, I don't know. I don't know if there's any. I'm not saying it's not possible to do a good devotional that has some good theology in it. I just don't know of any that exist. So, but you did say study guide, which is why I'm giving you these recommendations. These are good study guides. So once again, this is dispensationalpublishing.com. Okay, here's the main page for it. So right up here, Dispensational Publishing House. Be sure to tell him that I sent you. Now, if you wanted to actually do some Bible study on your own, I've always said that I'm not a fan of commentaries, but I am. I will say, if somebody does know how to rightly divide the Bible, then it can be a good source of commentaries for you. So let me find. I'd recommend something kind of starting off with more like a simple version of like Titus and Philemon rightly divided. Here's a good, once again, $12.95. He basically gives these things away. So the rightly divided commentary series on Titus and Philemon. So those are 2 very small New Testament epistles that you can easily read and work through very quickly. And so as a study guide, these will be so good for you to help you as you grow in your studying and knowledge of the Bible. So, Kristen, that's what I would recommend doing. Go to Dispensational Publishing House, get Fundamentalism for Dummies, Why I'm a Fundamentalist and You Should Be Too, Why I'm a Pre-Tribulational Premillennialist and You Should Be Too, get the Dispensationalism for Dummies, and get the Rightly Divided Titus and Philemon. That will be enough material to keep you busy, for a few months, and you're not going to spend any more than like $30 at the most. No, not even 30, probably more like 25, and that's including shipping. So it's going to be probably a lot cheaper than anything that you would get from a devotional or any other study guide. And so that's what I would do. Yeah. So let's see here. Looking at some commentary. Yeah, Trent, you're right. The companion Bible is it's a lot. I'm not saying not to get one, but you just, whenever you first open it, like Trent said, it's pretty confusing. I mean, you're thinking, what is going on? And all of a sudden you start to understand what he means and how he lays it all out, and you're just amazed at how much information is there. I don't agree with everything in the companion Bible. I'm not saying he got it all right. There's times when I read it and I think, missed it on that one, Bullinger. But for a lot of it, though, I think, yeah, he did so good. Nancy said daily devotionals are usually just a verse or 2 with commentary. Yeah, you'll get more Bible study out of all this if you'll go with that. Yeah, if you go with that. Trent said, I also find that reading other books from Bullinger helps learning from his notes in the companion Bible. So I haven't read any of Bullinger's other books. That may help me. I may need to do that, Trent. That's a good recommendation. Yep, Dispensationalism for Dummies. That's those books right there will be a good foundation to get you off. And like I said, like the Why I'm a Fundamentalist and the Premillennial Tribulation, like you could just about fit them in your pocket. I mean, they're so small, but they're packed full of such good information that it will give you enough to read, and you can reread it. I was actually rereading Why I'm a Pre-Tribulational Premillennialist last night. Yeah, I need to make a right dividing devotional. We would see. I don't know. I don't know if I have enough. I don't know. I feel like you've got to be able to tap into some personal, I don't know, aspect in order to do a good devotional. I don't know if I have it. I'm kind of an emotionalist type person sometimes. Let's see here. Trent says biblical election is another one of his small booklets. Oh yeah, okay. That'd be another good one you could do. Susan says Randy White's Bible studies are excellent. I can listen to them over and over. There is so much detail in them. Also, Les Feldick is an excellent teacher, and his lessons are only about 25 minutes. So, Davey asked me, and Kristen, you're welcome, absolutely. If you have any more questions, just let me know. I can text you a link to the website. Davey says, what's the difference between Les Feldick and what I teach? So I keep hearing about Les Feldick all the time. I am not well read on him, so I haven't looked into it yet. And I only recently found out about Les Feldick as far as his name and that he was from Oklahoma. So my triplets were born shortly after I started hearing about Les Feldick. So I've been focused on trying to get this ministry up and running, trying to get, obviously, my responsibilities at my church taken care of. So I haven't looked into Les Feldick. I can't tell you exactly what he teaches. If I was to guess, I don't want to guess. I don't know. I don't want to say but it's probably going to be pretty similar, just not exactly the same. There'll probably be some differences there. Okay, also, so Davey, you did mention why did Peter preach the death, burial, and resurrection, even though I think maybe y'all already have cleared that up. I can go ahead and pull it up, though. So Acts chapter 2. So I'll just read verse starting right here. For David speaketh concerning him, I foresaw the Lord always before my face, for he is on my right hand that I should not be moved. Therefore did my heart rejoice, and my tongue was glad. Moreover also my flesh rest in hope, because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell. So this is talking about the prophecy in Psalm. Neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. Thou hast made known to me the ways of life. Thou shalt make me full of joy with thy countenance. Men and brethren, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us unto this day. Therefore, being a prophet, and knowing that God had sworn with an oath to him that the fruit of his loins according to the flesh, he would raise up Christ to sit on his throne. And seeing this before, spake of the resurrection of Christ, that his soul was not left in hell, neither his flesh did see corruption. This Jesus hath God raised up, whereof we are all witnesses. Therefore, being by the right hand of God exalted, and having received of the Father the promise of the Holy Ghost, he hath shed forth this which ye now see and hear. Okay, so your question, why is he preaching the death, burial, and resurrection? Isn't that our thing? So our gospel of grace, yes, is built upon the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. But also understand, it was prophesied, even though it wasn't realized and understood, it was prophesied that the Messiah was going to die and be resurrected. And it was clear from Psalm, clear from a number of other prophecies as well. Now, we have the benefit of looking back and knowing the whole story. If we had lived in the first century days of the Jews, we wouldn't have known it either. And the disciples didn't know it. It wasn't because the disciples were dumb, even though evangelicalism and Christianity says that the disciples were dumb and didn't know anything. No, it was not clear from the scriptures that was going to be the case. So, a big part about the kingdom is the Messiah coming and establishing it, but also the idea of everything that entails with the kingdom. This hope of a resurrection, the waters of life. I mean, there's so many things that gives hint that there's going to be a new life, a resurrection in that sense. And so therefore, the Messiah himself needed to be resurrected in order to bring about all of that. If you don't have the resurrection of the Messiah, you don't have David being resurrected, Moses, Abraham. Like, there's no resurrection for them if the Messiah is not resurrected. Now, it's not the same salvation that you and I have today. Their resurrection will be at that first resurrection when Christ comes to establish the kingdom in Revelation 19. Our resurrection's in the rapture that takes place prior to the tribulation entirely. So these things are similar, where you do need a resurrection of the Jewish Messiah, but at the same time for us, we need a resurrection of our Savior. And so these things are similar, but the entire means is not the same, because they had to be obedient, they had to be tried, they had to endure, they had to be baptized, they had to do all that, where you and I were saved by grace through faith alone. And our salvation is not in the hope of a future physical kingdom. Our salvation is the heavenly blessings with God for eternity. So now whether that entails going to the new earth one day, I don't know. That's all interesting stuff that we'll find out eventually. So that would be my response there, Davey. Hopefully that kind of makes some things clear for you as we go on. Let's see. Susan says, Les Feldick is a dispensational right divider. He was a pioneer in the field, so we may not be too different. I don't know. Maybe there'd probably be some differences in where we divide some things. I don't know if he would divide Ephesians like I would, or 1st and 2nd Corinthians like I would. By Grace Alone, and another booklet, just by all of Randy's books. Yeah, they're all good. Let's see here. Going back up, saw a few questions. Davey says, do I think Billy Graham was saved? He put a lot of emphasis on repentance, but I think that he spoke enough to say that it was the work of Christ that saves. It was the grace of Christ, and he did emphasize repentance a lot. So you want to be careful anytime you do that, but I wouldn't go so far to say that he wasn't saved. I wish that he had been a right divider. If Billy Graham would have been a right divider, then the whole world would have been, Christianity as we know it would have been vastly different. Of course, if he was a right divider, then maybe he wouldn't have been near as successful as he was. Most likely not. The Acts 2 churches say we will go up and down like Jacob's ladder. What do you mean? Up and down? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, okay, no. Yeah, you're talking about the rapture, we go up, and then whenever Christ returns, we go back down. Yeah, I don't know who it is that Christ is bringing with him, but I lean towards it probably not being us. And if we do dwell on the earth, I don't think it's probably going to be until the new earth. That would be where I land on it. There's some who say that we never return to the earth. We stay in heaven forever, even in the new heavens. But I don't think we're going to return with Christ. I think that you'd be mixing mystery and prophecy at that point. But that's an interesting conversation. I would not kick somebody out for wanting to hold that view. I just think that position's a little bit harder to defend than just completely separating mystery and prophecy altogether. I think that would be a much easier case to make. Do you have any more questions? What did you think of yesterday's show? Did you like that response, how we did those? I'm going to fix it to where I have audio, to where it's much easier for me to be smoother on the transitions, but what did you think? Nancy says, just because you weren't a right divider doesn't mean you weren't saved. Yeah, that's what I would say. There's some right dividers who like to be so strong on that. But at the end of the day, if you ask somebody who's not a right divider how they're saved, like what work can they do, they're going to say, I can't do any work. I have to believe in Jesus and have faith that he's my Savior. And so I think that's about the same what we would say. You can split hairs to death. 1984, not sure I would say that Billy Graham was successful. Depends on how you define success. Well, I mean, he had a lot of people profess faith in Christ, and so I guess that's kind of how that we were describing that. That's tough. That's tough. Billy Graham, he was a product of his era in many ways. So much of what he preached was just what he had received from Billy Sunday and others to a large degree. That's how things were being preached and taught back then. The strength of dispensationalism wasn't near as strong in that day, at least in his camp. And so he's a man of his era. I don't know, kind of like all things, like I was talking about with Martin Luther King. Try to look at some things maybe that were good and realize that not everything was great. When it comes to his personal life, yes, when it comes to his personal life, you can't say near as much bad stuff about Billy Graham. As far as I know, he didn't have any really scandals or anything in his life. So each man is kind of his era. Ronald Reagan makes me mad because he let machine guns be banned. That frustrates me so much. So I can find something wrong with just about every generation, I suppose. Is the New Jerusalem 1,500 miles square? Go to Revelation 21. Let me look real quick. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth, and he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. Do we actually know how long a furlong is? How long, I'm Googling this, and I'm just assuming that Google may give me something close, but probably not. How long is a furlong? About 220 yards is what they say a furlong is. I don't know how confident we are on all these things. I feel like sometimes we say stuff all the time that we know, but we don't really know. So how many furlongs did it say it was? 12,000 furlongs. Okay. So let's turn. Oh yeah, comes out to 1,500 miles. I mean, okay, so if a furlong is 220 yards, then 1,500 miles, I guess that's what it would be. So I challenge anybody else to come up with a better number. So you like the show, Nancy? Okay, good. Yeah, I'll do some more. I've got to get it figured out. I may have to change my setup over here to where I can hear things, because my current setup, it was a nice idea in theory, but it's lacking giving me the ability to hear stuff. So I need to be able to hear. Let's see. Trent says, I think sometimes we're too tight on who is saved. Nancy, I didn't mean to jump you. Grew up with Billy Graham. Never heard of dispensationalism, but I'm saved. Yeah, I think that's it. Did it cause some baggage and some theology for us? Yeah, possibly. Probably so. But I think that we can say there are things that he accomplished. I don't know. I know sometimes we like to be hard on non-right dividers because they've made life difficult for us in a lot of ways, because we're trying to get people to understand and help them make sense of the Gospels and help them discern, and yet so many of the big-time teachers and pastors didn't teach right division, so it makes our job difficult. But I kind of opt to Nancy. Trent says, sometimes I think we're too tight on who is saved, and there are probably many people of different beliefs who are saved because it's simply by grace through faith. Yes, that's it. The Thompson Chain Reference Bible has a conversion table for it. Works out to about 1,500. Yeah, I don't know. That would be strange. You think the city could be a pyramid? lies 4 square. Does that work? Does the dimensions work? Because a pyramid does. You could have a 4 square base pyramid. That's interesting. Our heavenly place could be within 1,500 miles high. Davey, you're smart. That's good. I like it. I'm not saying I disagree with you on that one. That's kind of interesting. I didn't know where you were getting at with that. That's pretty good. The length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. Length as large as the breadth, and the length, breadth, and height are equal. The wall thereof. So the wall, he measured the wall thereof 144 cubits. This is where things get a little bit... How would we work that with the wall being 144 cubits and yet being a pyramid? This is where I don't know. We'll have to think about that. That's an interesting question. Nancy just says, yeah, you were able to... And I think that's the truth for a lot of things. Yep. I think that, Chuck, I think you summed it pretty well. God's grace is pretty big. The death, burial, and resurrection, if you're trusting in that alone, that is what is required. Or that's all that's needed, or however you want to put it. Yeah, God's grace does extend. I am not someone that says that you have to have it down to a T on your theology in order to be saved. I think that we are narrowing it down way, way too much. So I think that's the key. That's where it lies. So like I said, take each man in his time. And so, I look back fondly on like Adrian Rogers. He didn't have right division down necessarily, but a lot of things that he did I can appreciate. He preached from a King James Bible. He had a semi-dispensational view, a rapture view. So I don't see it as me. I don't see myself as completely burying or undoing the things that those men did. I just see it as I'm taking what good I can and then trying to improve upon the work that they did and move on from there and hopefully make another generation to where they can come after me and say, okay, here's the things that Mark Baze did well, and here's the things that he needed to adjust, that he couldn't see, he didn't fix, maybe he was mistaken, fill in the blank, and we build from there. So each generation, hopefully, we're making each other more sound in our theology and doctrine. And so we can't have a generation without the previous. So, and I think that about sums it up. Thank you all for joining us today. This was a good discussion. This was a great chat. Y'all are just the best, second to none. I appreciate each and every one of you. And tomorrow we'll be back for I've hosted Ask the Theologian too much. Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze. Go to my website, markbazeministries.org. I am working on getting it all updated with new material, new videos, things of that nature. But thank you so much for your continued support, for your faith, for your fellowship. And we will see you back here tomorrow. Thank you all very much.